And I want to just officially welcome you and welcome all of our members and guests and such to today's just sort of holiday special treat. And we are so lucky to have Dr. Loewenheim with us. And I know that he will spare no words talking about himself, so I won't spend any in that way. But this is a special thank you really to our members and our friends who helped us during the election. That's our bread and butter. That's how we live. That's why we don't have to do bake sales and other things that sometimes organizations have to do. So many thanks to those of you who helped us during the election. And now, Thomas, you're on. So gosh, start at the beginning, even though I feel like we already, we had a little taste here.
Right, right. That's so exciting. I was wondering if I need to become a host in order for me to share my screen. Do you know that or
Yes, and I
yes?
will do that.
All right, just make me a co-host.
I shall. You are.
All right, awesome. I think now we are. There we go. Good. So I thought we'll just start with some music, and Francine asked me to include more music than talking, and I'll balance it out. Don't worry, it will be a good, nice balance. But this is actually a recording of the Dvorak Cello Concerto that I did here a few years ago with the Fresno State Symphony Orchestra and my conducting teacher. So it's a very emotional recording. Might not be 100% perfect, but it's a very emotional recording for me because it involves my own conducting teacher from Indiana University who came here to Fresno, and I was playing with the orchestra that in a way I built after coming here to Fresno, and I'll tell you about all of that. So let's hear some music. We'll only hear the exposition, which is about 6-7 minutes long, but I hope you enjoy it. So I need to find it first. Let me see. I need to share my computer sound, and I think I found it. There we go. And here we go. isn't that beautiful? I mean, I guess we can listen to it forever and ever and ever, right? It's. I wish I could say that the reason I play the cello is the Dvorak cello concerto, which is our number one concerto. It's the best cello concerto. Johannes Brahms used to say that when he heard the Dvorak cello concerto, he said if he knew a concerto like that could be written for cello, he would have written it himself, right? And Dvorak wrote this concerto. It's a very sad story, a little bit. Of course, Dvorak, as you all know, was a Czech composer, and he lived in Prague. He was from Prague originally, and then he in the 1890s, he came to the United States for a few years. He was teaching at Juilliard. He was teaching in Boston and in New York, and he traveled the United States and got inspired by American music. And he wrote this cello concerto here. And he dedicated the last movement, which is beautiful, to his girlfriend or to his partner at the time, who was in Czech Republic, and then she passed away. And he finished the concerto in a very heroic way. And then he added an extra 3 or 4 minutes that express his pain and the beauty and how much he missed her and etc. So he actually added a part after she passed away, dedicating that part to her and to her memory and how much he loved her. So the Dvorak concerto is our number one, not our, I mean us cellists. And I wish I could say that, but actually I have to say that the reason that I play the cello is actually my mom. My mom is an awesome lady, and both my grandparents were professional musicians. And I don't know if many of you know or not, but I'm actually handicapped on both my legs. And my mom was like, okay, what instrument can Thomas play, that will suit that problem, or that will work with that program, because standing and walking, so a violinist was out of the question, because all the solos, everything, they stand up, right? So she and my grandma, her parents, my mom's parents were both professional musicians. My grandpa was a violinist and a founding member of the Haifa Symphony Orchestra, where we were from. And my grandma was a concert pianist. She was from Vienna, and she was really a huge gift. I mean, a huge talent, what we call the child prodigy. And I have clips from Vienna from the early 1920s when she was performing all over the world in a way, and newspaper article, I mean, saying how incredible she was, what a talent, and etc. And then of course Second World War happened, and she moved to Israel, and then they didn't need concert pianists, they needed secretaries and workers and etc. So she kept playing piano, and she kept this, but the career unfortunately got short. But they both, all of them, my mom and my grandparents, decided Thomas is going to play the cello. And I was 4.5 years old when they gave me my first cello, and it was ups and downs, as many kids. I have two kids, 2 sons now. Emmanuel, who is 9, he's playing violin and piano, and my little son Raphael, who plays cello and piano. And I see now how the ups and downs go, but encouragement and love and actually playing together is one of the funnest things that we can do. So even though I was actually born in Germany, because my parents were there for a couple of years, my dad's work, when we moved back, then I got to start playing the cello, and I was very happy. I got to play with my grandfather, who was working with me for a while, and then of course I went and studied with wonderful teachers throughout my high school. I went to a music high school in Haifa, which was called the Vitzo School, and then from there on I went to the Jerusalem Academy. I studied there for 4 years. I had a wonderful wonderful teacher who was a student of Rostropovich. He was a student of Tortelier, was a student of Aldo Parisot, and many important names in the cello world. And he helped me become much better. And then another teacher came, Emmanuel Gruber, who was actually here in Fresno, right? One of the great things about Fresno is that I'm able to bring all my own teachers and my colleagues here to Fresno and share the love of music and the excellence that they always gave us. Please let me know if I talk too far. I'm so excited I'm so excited to be here, and I was told that I usually speak too fast because I have a limited amount of time and a lot of information I want to share with you, all right? So maybe you can play it on slow motion on YouTube later, right? Yes, so I went to the Jerusalem Academy, and also because my dad worked on ships. He was a chief engineer on those big, 200,000 or 100,000 ton container ships. Then every summer I would go with him on the ship and drop off in Italy or somewhere in France, and then take a train and go for master classes. So I was very fortunate. So during my studies in Israel to travel around Europe and get master classes. Also in Israel we had something called the Jerusalem Music Center, founded by Isaac Stern. And in that center they would come the greatest teacher, Janos Starker, Aldo Parisot, Pablo Pablo Casals, all these Leonard Rose, all these incredible teachers came to Israel every year and gave those master classes. And I would just sit there for 2 weeks, skip school, skip everything, just to get as much information from all those wonderful, wonderful teachers. And I was fortunate both in Israel and then Austria, Italy, France, to have wonderful masterclasses with Janos Starker himself. Janos Starker is one of the greatest cellists alive. Aldo Pariso, Misha Maisky, many of you heard, Philippe Muller, Alto Noas, and many, many, many others. I won't download too many names, but the reason I'm sharing those names with you is because I believe that in order to become a great artist, one has to have inspiration. I think that that's the one thing that and information, those two things combined. If you have inspiration, musical inspiration, and then technical information or musical information, in order to put the two together and become phenomenal, I believe that that makes a true great musician, and then for me a true great cellist. In my final year in the in the academy in Jerusalem, where I got my bachelor's degree, I won a competition, the concerto competition, and played Brahms' double concerto, and we got to do it with the university orchestra, and a very famous conductor, Mendy Rodan was his name. And a friend of my mom's who was teaching at the University of Michigan came to the concert, and after the concert he came to me and offered me on the spot. He offered me a full scholarship, full dorms, and a stipend to come and study and do my master's at the University of Michigan. So I was very excited to come to Michigan. I was in the university string quartet and got to study with a student of the great Gregor Petigorsky, who was teaching with Yasha Heifetz down in LA before in the 70s and the 60s. But I got to study with Erling Blondel Bengtson there for 2 years. And after that, I really needed that technical precision. I was always looking for perfection, and Janos Starker was known as the most perfect cellist. He was known as the Yasha Heifetz of the cello players. And he accepted me into his class. I mean, you have to understand, he accepted 2 students out of the whole world. That one year, a Greek cellist and myself were accepted to his class, and which was very limited, and it was a huge honor just to be in that class. And I went to Indiana University to start my doctorate, and that was the beginning of my work with Mr. Starker, and then afterwards I became the assistant of Professor Tsuyoshi Tsutsumi while working on my doctorate. In the middle of my work on my doctorate, I fell in love. It happens to people. And no, it's not a girl. It was that blue box behind me. It's called my cello, my Jean-Baptiste Villaume cello. Jean-Baptiste Villaume was known, if you all heard of Antonio Stradivarius, right? You can just do thumbs up like I do with my students, right? Thumbs up. Like, there we go. So Antonio Stradivarius was probably the most famous violin and cello maker. And his instruments are the most successful. But those instruments sell now anywhere from $10 to $40 million. You know, I mean, in order to get a super great Stradivarius, forget it. And Guarnerius, those two names are the most famous. But what is great about Jean-Baptiste Villaume is known as the Stradivarius of the 19th century. And he was a genius, both as a maker and as a salesman. He was one of the first to recognize the incredible genius of Antonio Stradivarius. And he would go to Italy trying to find those in estates, in churches, in monasteries, to find those instruments, buy them off, and then bring them, up to France and sell them in Germany and in England and in France, of course. But before and make a huge profit. He would buy for a certain price and then sell them tenfold more to people, because he would tell them what incredible. But before he sold them, he always made copies out of those instruments, and his copies are even more perfect than Stradivarius. Because Stradivarius would make each side just by his eyes, and the Italian makers, they just go by the feel and they make the instrument. He would choose the better side and then copy it perfectly, so you'd end up with a perfect Stradivarius instrument. And I was fortunate to come across this cello, and it took me 6 months, because I was a graduate student. I had $150 in my bank account. I mean, we're talking large amounts of money. My cello is more expensive than my home, right? So these are large amounts of money, and as a student you don't have that, but with a lot of help and a lot of support, I got this huge mortgage, and I started paying it off, and that's when I got my first job in Canada. And I was teaching at Memorial University for a few years there, for 3 years. And even though I was hired as a cello professor, I got to teach history and theory and music education classes and conduct the Memorial Chamber Orchestra. And that's really where conducting started to become a much more important part of my life. And after I paid off a large sum of my cello, and after 3 years, I decided it was very important for me to finish my doctorate and move back to Bloomington, Indiana. And started working in on my dissertation and tried to finish everything. In the process, I was also teaching there in the preschool program, and also got to become the conductor of the Musical Arts Youth Orchestra, where I met Julia Copeland, who is now here the music director of the youth orchestras of Fresno and our international festival FUSA. So it has been a very exciting time being in Bloomington. And before I go telling you about everything I did here, I want to show you another clip of music of me playing before we go into the conducting aspect. And that is actually, as we know, we have our FUSA festival here, and that festival was modeled on a festival that Julia Copeland and I started in Indiana. It was called IMAO, International Musical Arts Youth Orchestra. And after I moved actually to Fresno, I came back as the guest artist to play solo with them. And this recording is from that concert. It's the second half of the variations on a Rococo theme by Tchaikovsky. So we're starting from the cadenza all the way to the end. It's not too long, but it's gorgeous music, and you'll see some youth in it as well. Sharing the screen is always the hard part because I have no idea where it is. There it is. So that is Tchaikovsky's very famous Rococo Variations, and one of my favorite pieces to play. I hope you're enjoying all this music. If you want more or less, you can always tell me what you want, right? But yeah, so from there on, I mean, that was already the beginning where I started to both conduct and play cello quite a bit. And as I was finishing up my work in Indiana University, finishing up my doctorate, I was invited to come to Fresno for a job interview. And one of the things that attracted me most about the job here is that the job here was announced as a conductor and a cellist. So I wouldn't have to make the choice. Actually, at the time, I had 3 job interviews. One was cello only, one was conducting only. And here at Fresno State, I got the opportunity, at least I was hoping to get the opportunity to do both. And I think there were like over 100 applicants, 140, somebody mentioned to me once, applicants here, and I'm very honored to have been selected. And I came here because, first of all, I saw the huge potential here in Fresno. And second of all, because I got to do both conducting and cello, which I truly fell in love with. As I was coming back from Canada to Indiana University, because I was conducting already in Canada at the university, I was conductor of the chamber orchestra there. Then Maestro David Efron, who was the conductor of the first piece that I demonstrated for you, he agreed because he knew me from before when I was a student and I was playing in the orchestra. So he was very intrigued to hear what I was doing, and he came to the library with me and we were watching a video of my performance in Canada. Our chamber orchestra was a very small one that grew in quality so much that we would record 4 times a year for the Canadian Broadcasting Company. And one of those concerts I played for him, and he accepted me into his conducting class. So once I was finishing up my dissertation, I was also studying conducting with him and conducting the youth orchestra back in Indiana. And then I came here and was accepted to the position. And it was really funny. As I was packing and trying to move to Fresno, I got a phone call from the president of the youth orchestras of Fresno. And she said that their conductor was going on a sabbatical for a year or was leaving, and whether I would mind conducting the orchestra. And I was like, it would be an honor. So I came and I had an interview, and I showed them a couple of videos of our performances, and they truly enjoyed it. And it was actually really a blessing from above, if you believe in above, or just pure luck. It was really a special moment in Fresno because it then enabled me to have a large overview of everything going on musically with our youth here in town. Because the Youth Orchestra of Fresno, as you know, have 3 orchestras, and the youngest members are, my son joined at 5, and we had a few young members as 5 or 6-year-olds, all the way up to, at the time we even had some college kids, but now we have our college students as coaches. So you have age 5 all the way up to early college in the Youth Orchestras of Fresno in 3 different orchestras. And then, of course, the Fresno State program that when I first got here only had 3 string students. And we built now into what you saw, the orchestra, that was only after 3 or 4 years being here in Fresno, and now we have a very large, very high quality program, and the wind department, winds and brass, were very supportive, so we used the players from the band and the marching band in the orchestra as well with our string players, and we were able to build a very high level, high quality program. the youth orchestras of Fresno in my second year. Remember I mentioned Julia Copeland. In my second year here, the executive director quit, and they were looking for an executive director. And I called Julia and said, "Hey, would you apply for the job?" And we had a few finalists, and she was one of the finalists. And she got the job and moved from Bloomington, Indiana, here to Fresno to be the music executive director, of the youth orchestras of Fresno. And together with her, we were able to build an incredible program. We were also added an Access program. It's called Accent on Access, which is kind of like an El Sistema program where we teach violin to underserved kids and bring them up to the level to just simply perform in our youth orchestra. So we'll have kids who would never be able to play violin or never be able to learn because they don't have it in their schools or because they wouldn't have the means to. And we give them lessons and we give them instruments. And what is so amazing to me, that is Julia's real little baby. And what is so amazing to me is to see these kids climb up. At the beginning, they were just in our first little orchestra, and then finally we had 2 of the members come and play in our top. Actually, 3 members already. You have to understand, it takes years to raise someone to be in our top youth orchestra, or youth philharmonic, because that orchestra is playing some of the hardest. They're playing Mahler symphonies, Shostakovich symphonies. It's an incredible youth orchestra. It actually got national recognition because of the quality of the program that we were able to build. And our students from the youth orchestra, I mean, the orchestra when I came was around 100 students or so. We were at almost 300 at some point, and now we're around 250. I mean, now we're all at home, but just before we left, we were about 250 students. And students come all the way from Bakersfield and from Modesto. There was many times where they would come down to Fresno and join our orchestras, and the program just grew so much that Julia and I were thinking, okay, what can we do to add to that? And of course, the next level would then build a big international music festival, which we call the Fresno Orchestra Summer Academy, or known as FUSA. Originally, it had opera aspect in it. That's why the second O that we're not having right now, just again because opera is simply so expensive and complicated. So let me show you a little bit of a clip from Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra, one of the most deepest tone poems based on a poem by Nietzsche, and that is the FUSA Orchestra. And then I'll tell you how we came to build that program and how important the youth orchestras of Fresno are for our community. They're a gift to this community. Unfortunately, not many people know about. Unfortunately, it's known as the best kept secret on Fresno. People all over the world know about the youth orchestras of Fresno, but here in Fresno, not everybody knows. So we've tried to change it, but it's very difficult because in the past we used to have newspapers that everybody read, but now with social media and etc., it's very difficult to connect with everybody. NPR is helping us a little bit, of course. Our local KVPR is helping us. The newspaper is still helping us. Donald Monroe is helping us, trying to get the word out. But it's still difficult. But it's still one of the best gifts that we have here. Let me play you a bit of a clip so I don't just talk all the time, and you have some beautiful music as well. And again, this is Richard Strauss, Also sprach Zarathustra, just a few minutes from after the beginning. Yes, so this is Richard Strauss, um, and just such a beautiful piece. Sorry, I just need to make sure I stop it. There we go. So comes the question: how do we get from a youth orchestra to such an incredible program? And before I get to that, I want to say why is orchestra, and especially any orchestra, but why a youth orchestra so important to me? And as you can see, I'm a perfectionist and I like everything to be on the highest quality and the highest level possible. And I divide my life between practicing the cello and conducting and building programs and educating. I think educating and giving back to the community and giving back to a young generation is probably the most important role that any human being has on this planet, and of course educators and teachers. For me, an orchestra is a model of society. And in an orchestral setting, it is displayed in the best way possible, because the first most important thing is that every member is responsible for their own actions. Because if you mess up, you messed up for everybody. If you play a wrong note, if you come in the wrong entrance, if you play too loud or too soft, if you make any kind of a mistake, if you didn't practice your part enough, the whole orchestra suffers, because the quality of the product comes down. And in society, I believe that if everyone took their role to be responsible for their own actions and being a good citizen, I believe that our society would have been a much, much better place, and we would have been in a better place as a world, as a planet, right? Once a member of the orchestra is very responsible and very good and learns their part and practices to become the best they can be, they then become part of a section, right? I mean, if you're a cellist, you're part of the cello section. If you're a flutist, you're part of the flute section, and etc. And I always think of a section as a city or a county, where you then become an integral member of that little part, and you make your perfect, you play in unison with everybody in your city, and etc. Then you become a member of the larger sections, strings, winds, brass, percussion, etc. And that is kind of like a country, right? You're becoming, all these cities, all these states, they're becoming part of a country. And then all these countries are coming together. All these sections come together to play in perfect harmony. While looking at the leader, while looking at the conductor, while reading the music, while listening to your own section, while listening to what's going on as a piece as a whole, every member in the orchestra, what happens to their mind, what happens to their brain, and their responsibility, everything comes together in a perfect harmony. And when you see youth do that, when you see youth standing up to being at the highest level that they can be, and grow, and of course it's wonderful to see our youngest members coming in and learning how to play, but even then we push them to play as perfectly as possible, as beautiful as possible, already listening to the other parts. Then they go to the symphony orchestra, which is our middle group, which is already playing quite difficult pieces like Carmen and Bizet and smaller symphonies. And then of course to see them grow into the incredible musicians in order to play in our youth philharmony, where they get to play Mahler symphonies, Shostakovich. First of all, they're also exposed to all this culture. Music is a non-verbal communication. And I always try and share with the students the historic background, the composer's background, to understand what is the historic background. When we play a Shostakovich symphony, what is the meaning to Shostakovich of his music? When you play Mahler, what was the meaning for him? What happened in the world while you wrote? Which revolutions, which major historic event happened that encouraged this beautiful music making? And of course, all the skills that it takes to be a great musician. I think every kid should play music, because imagine yourself, me as a cellist. What happens in my brain? I'm trying to play beautifully, I'm trying to express myself, when I'm actually sitting with a wooden box with metal wires stretched on top of it and a stick with horsehair, and I'm scratching the whole thing, and I'm trying to make art. I mean, do you understand how complex the process is of going from just taking and scratching on a metal wire or any other instrument, and then reading dots on a page, and translating all of that into a meaningful experience for us players, and of course you, the audience. And I think that every kid that goes through that, of course, eye-hand coordination is a skill any surgeon needs, but the eye-hand coordination, and in music it's ear-eye-hand coordination. Memorization. I mean, do you really think it's hard to memorize 10 terms when you're learning a Dvorak concerto that is 50 minutes long, or when you're learning Tchaikovsky violin concerto or any other piece? Of course, the thing that most people worry about is talking in front of people. I mean, public speaking, that's the thing that makes people as nervous as it can be. But imagine yourself how much more nervous you get to play a concerto in front of an orchestra, to play a recital, to stand in front of 2,000 people in Disney Hall and perform for them. Speaking to a public is a piece of cake compared to that. And all these skills that the musicians get, plus that responsibility, plus that feeling of community. And of course, with youth orchestras, we also have a role of building the musicians of the future. I know that a large percentage of them are actually not going to be musicians because so many of them are so smart and so talented. They're going to be doctors, lawyers, and etc. But that is, for me, an equally important part of building music lovers. And if you look at I know many of you go to the Fresno Philharmonic. One of the things that makes me so happy is not just to see my former students or even some of my current students play in the orchestra and become members of that, but when I come to the concerts and I see my students from the youth orchestra and their families sitting in the hall, and I realize that we are building also the audience of the futures and we are able to bring their families to join. I think that is a mission in itself that is so important. And of course, building the community, I mean, producing beautiful music. All our concerts of the youth orchestras are all free. And we invite the public because we noticed that we'd rather play in full houses right now and give these kids the best opportunity. And what is funny is that with donations, we made up even more than what we would do in ticket sales, but that works only for a youth orchestra. But nevertheless, we see it as a mission of building because so many of the parents of our kids have never been to a concert until their kids go to a concert. They play in a concert and they start going and then they go like, I didn't think I would like classical music, but they love classical music. And they start falling in love with it and then they come to the Fresno Philharmonic, then they go to the keyboard series, then they go to chamber music concert, and then they start falling in love and finding about classical music more and more and more. So that is the growth and that is the contribution to this community, that we have such an incredible educational but also performing arts organization that produces very high quality and very high level music for anyone who wants to come. It's very important. And since my job at Fresno State I'm also teaching where I'm both cello professor and I've built an incredible cello class of major competition winners. I currently have 14 cello students at the Fresno State class, and many of them come now from Mexico, from Puerto Rico, from all over the United States, from Europe. I mean, really, it became a center for music making, and the Fresno State Symphony Orchestra has also come up in a very high level. And a few years ago, what started as a community project where we took the youth orchestras of Fresno and took the Fresno State Orchestra and combined them to perform Mahler's Symphony No. 1. It was an incredible first collaboration, and that gave the inspiration then to our FUSA festival, which brings in faculty. We are about 30 faculty members, 35 faculty members that come from all over the world to teach our students here. But they also bring in their students. As you saw, the orchestra is massive. We have 140 members in the FUSA Philharmonic Orchestra. And all the principal players are faculty members, and the faculty literally come from Germany, from Asia, from Italy, from all over the United States, anywhere you can imagine. The faculty is so international, and it's all coming here to Fresno. And the motto of the festival is bring the world to Fresno and take Fresno to the world. Because at the end of this festival, what we do is a culmination concert at Disney Hall. That's what you heard, the Strauss, and I have another sample for you from that concert. We've done 7 FUSA festivals, and we were about to go on a Chinese internet. So the reputation of the festival has gone so far that we were invited to go on a 10-city tour in China last December, and it got canceled for mysterious reasons just couple of weeks. We already had our tickets just a couple of weeks before we left, and now we know why. Looking in hindsight, we know what happened in China, in December that made them cancel all our concerts. And of course, all the other festivals were canceled because of the pandemic, but we can't wait for the day to come back. But the reputation went so that we then took the festival to LA every year and performed in Disney Hall, the home of the Los Angeles Philharmonic, and our concerts have gotten rave reviews. Another aspect I very much like about the FUSA Festival, that we also have what we call a half-day program, which is all local younger students. And what is so incredible is that every student who gets a scholarship to come to the festival then has to dedicate 1 or 2 hours per day to go and teach the younger members. So you'll have students come from Juilliard, you'll have students come from Europe, you'll have students come from Asia, to learn from the great faculty members that we have, and then they go and teach the younger members who did not make it to the FUSA Phil, and they're basically coming here and learning about, you get the best, but then you give your best to the next generation already within our festival. And our half-day program orchestra has grown throughout the years, and it's become a huge program now, where the students they love it because they get to learn with young teachers, they get to learn with energized, and of course the teachers get experience in teaching, and they build this relationship. When you come to our concert here, our final concert in Fresno is always a large event. We had almost 2,000 people come to one, or 1,800 people come to one of our last concerts here in Fresno. So we go to LA, we perform Disney Hall, and then we bring everybody back to Fresno for our final event, which has taken place in Roosevelt Hall. It has taken in People's Church. This year was supposed to be at the Shagoyan Hall. But again, we're trying to involve the community with our festival as much as possible. My dream is, of course, that one we will have a dedicated concert hall here in Fresno where we can host the festival for even longer, and hope that imagine yourself, it's like an Aspen Festival or a Tanglewood Festival, where then people from all over the country come to Fresno for the music. What kind of economic boom it could affect our community if people come here for 3-4 weeks to hear music. They go to Yosemite during the day and hear concerts in the evenings. That's my long-term dream. But it already had this effect, and to see the younger students listen to their teachers in the big orchestra, and the teachers listen to the younger students because they always open our concerts, and to see the hugs at the end of the event. I always tell my students that the reason I do music is in order to create world peace, and they always go like, yeah, whatever, they're laughing. You can't do world peace with music. But you see our festival where you have all these people. We have over 200 people come to a festival, and people who have never met each other. And within minutes, if not, literally minutes of playing together, suddenly they become friends. And suddenly, by the first break, they're already all talking to each other, and they're all mingling. And by the end of the festival, they go and produce concerts on the highest level, interacting with each other perfectly. I mean, that is world peace. You have all the people come together, working for a common goal, building relationships that last forever. I have contacts with people that I attended festivals with, and you create those bridges where music just brings everyone together. And if you come to one of our live concerts, this energy that I'm describing, I'm sure you can feel it just from my passion, it goes towards the audience, and suddenly the audience becomes part of this energy, part of this world peace, part of this harmony coming together. And that is simply magical. There's no words to describe that feeling. I was watching the videos, choosing the best parts for this lectures today, and after being home for 9 months, I just started crying because the emotional content of the music, I suddenly remembered it. I do practice every night, but getting this power, getting this 140 people working together for a common goal without anyone saying I'm more important. It's just everyone being equally important and working together to produce the most incredible experience. For me, that is my mission in life. That is why I love music so much. That is why I love orchestra so much. And I want to share with you this final few minutes of Shostakovich's symphony number 7 called Leningrad. Shostakovich wrote it in 1943 and 1944 when Leningrad was under siege by the German army, the Nazis, who were coming to try and occupy Russia. And that was the deadliest war battle out of all the Second World War. Hundreds of thousands of people died in that war, and Shostakovich could hear the cannons going in the background during the premiere. The symphony is kind of a depiction of the war and depiction of the pain and the loss. But nevertheless, at the end, there is this beautiful chorale rising from the ashes, sort of, to this tremendous ending that only Shostakovich knows how to do, the giving that light at the end of the tunnel, the giving hope for the people. And I hope that we can be in a concert hall together very, very soon as well, and survive this difficult time for everyone. So here is some Shostakovich for the end of this presentation. I hope you're enjoying it. That's the wrong button. I have to make sure I press the right button. There we go. it's just nice to hear the sound of so of an audience. It's I missed that a lot. Just in case you're wondering. But yeah, just an incredible opportunity, and this is all here in our town, here in Fresno. And that is what we do. We build, and I have a feeling we'll have to rebuild when we're coming back. But we have experience now of rebuilding, and I hope it goes faster than it took the first time around. And I hope you enjoyed my presentation. I understand that we have a few more minutes for questions. So if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer. But I hope that you see the mission and you see the journey. It doesn't come... I wasn't born Dr. Loewenheim, I was born just Thomas. And growing into this role, growing into the mission is a lot of work, a lot of years, a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, and passion. Passion for love, and passion for peace, and passion for music, and passion for our community.
So, Thomas, your enthusiasm, I mean, really, I'm ready to take lessons. I mean, it's just overwhelming. And I'm sure that some people have questions. If you do, just unmute yourself and hop in.
Looks like Ms. Bauer has a question.
Oh, yeah.
I have a comment. Thomas, first of all, I just want to thank you for what you've done with that youth orchestra. We've watched you for the many years you've been doing it, and it's phenomenal what you've done. And I wonder if you could tell us what's happened in the last 9 months with all the students and how you're rehearsing them.
That's a great question. Yes. Well, yeah. If I get emotional, just ignore me, okay? We were just preparing for our big final concert of last year. We had an incredible program with all kinds of pieces that I just love, and we were planning our 70th. This was supposed to be our 70th anniversary year. What we did is we of course immediately moved into Zoom like this. We started immediately. We had 1 week off. And then I said, we cannot take any time off. As soon as I found out about Zoom and made it work, and we went and did our last semester, I just met with the different orchestras. We rehearsed our pieces because everybody was hoping it's going to be, remember I said, couple of weeks quarantine, 2 weeks, and I said 4 weeks quarantine, just 6 week quarantine, and we're still here, right? So we were planning, and we just kept rehearsing. We used to interview orchestra, listening to recordings, and as I started realizing, I don't think we're coming back anytime soon, I turned them all into the younger kids. They learned all kinds of pieces, the younger orchestras that we could play together. As we were learning the art of teaching on Zoom, and then the other two orchestras, I combined them and started giving them music appreciation lectures about lost composers, about pieces that they should know, and there was enthusiasm. Everybody was locked at home, nobody knew what's going on, so they came and listened and etc. This year we realized that just music appreciation itself is not going to work, so we actually devised a very complex program that goes all the way from 2 o'clock until 6. Most of the time we go till 6:30 every single Sunday. Between 2 and 3, we do a string orchestra, and we break into breakout rooms, and we found that to be incredibly beneficial. We have about 12 to 15 kids in each, two violin sectionals, a viola, a cello, and a bass. And what we do is, the kids are on mute, but I taught them how to, for example, my cello class, we do scales, we do an etude, and we prepared a piece that all of us have then recorded, and Julia Copeland is now editing together. It's the Dvorak humoresque, that every kid is playing a few measures, but it comes all together into one piece. And our pianist Hatem Nadim, who you saw on the organ in the Fusa Festival, he's a genius at accompanying people. So he's gonna play a piano accompaniment to whatever the recording is going to be, because every kid plays it a little bit different. So we managed to do this project. That was the first hour. Then from 3 to 3:30, I do theory for the kids, because we realized that is, like everything bad happens, you have to turn it into gold, right? So that was in a way an opportunity to teach them theory, because many of them don't have any idea about it all. So we started just with recognizing notes. Now we're working on recognizing intervals. We do rhythmic and melodic dictations, and there's a lot of instruction going that. We were able, I have a quiz. Every week we have a quiz where I play 10 intervals, and I have to recognize them, and we have a polling. I don't know if you know about the polling feature, but we could have a poll here, and then everybody puts in what they think is the right answer, and the participation is actually like 80% of the kids. We have about 50 kids coming into that, and about 80% of them actually answer all the times, which is very high for Zoom, because as you know, Zoom, usually a teacher asks a question, and so when was Napoleon born? and it's just silent, it's silent forever and ever. But to have 80% participation by answering the question, and many of them get it right. So we're using again the time to teach them stuff that usually and skills they usually wouldn't get. And then after that, we have master classes, which everybody loves. That is our highest attending part of it, where we have great artists literally from all over the world, again, because with Zoom, you can just zoom in, right? And we had, the best of the best of the best teachers come anywhere from Luis Fred, who was our trombone faculty, who lives in Florida, teach a trombone masterclass, horn masterclass, with Lynette, violin masterclasses, cello, literally every instrument. Jaime Amador came and gave a viola masterclass. Really incredible. Adriana Linares came, viola masterclass. Top of the people, principal bass player of Indianapolis Symphony gave a bass masterclass. And all the kids get to perform. Anyone who wants to perform gets to perform and be criticized in front of everyone. So it does a few things, because through the master classes, kids get to perform live. So the kids who usually just play together in an orchestra get to hear each other. And for the first time, they're like, I've never heard you play. You play so well. This is so exciting, right? There is the element of a little bit of a live concert, because you get to hear them live. And of course there is also then the critique part, where everybody gets to learn, because one of the things, we had Scott Piper, the famous tenor, come and give a masterclass to anyone who wanted to play, and it was just incredible to see how a perspective of a singer who always has words in mind and breathing, how that affected the playing of the instrumentalist. So it was really an eye-opener for everyone. After the masterclass, we do sight reading for half an hour, where I tell all the students the week before, let's read this movement. So we read several. We read Dvorak, Capriccio, and we read Sibelius' Symphony No. 1. Did every movement a week. We played them twice. The students get to prepare it. We send them electronically the music, and then we play it with a recording, unfortunately. But at least they get to learn the repertory. They get to play with the recordings, and I give instruction. I tell them where they are, because following just with the recording and the music is sometimes hard. So I will tell them, we're not rehearsal 1, rehearsal 2. I'll say that. Now it comes the more difficult section, here comes the most beautiful section, and try and make it as interactive as possible. And then the final section of our Sundays is something we call audition preparation class. And any student who is in the orchestra who has to prepare an audition or a competition, or just wants to play for us because they're practicing for a specific event, gets to come. Many times, almost all the times, our guest artists came back for that to give their own perspective and comments. And our students have actually done really well auditioning for state orchestras, for national orchestras, for schools. Many are going, seniors that are going to audition for college, and etc. So the attendance of that has been very successful, and the students have grown tremendously. So while no, we don't have the usual 250 kids that usually come, but we try and reach out to as many as we can. And we have an average, I would say, of, because it's changing, right? We designed the program like that so the younger kids would mostly be more interested in their first part, and then all of them meet somehow throughout the theory and the masterclass, and then the younger ones had enough after 2.5 hours, and then the older kids stay and get to do the sight reading and the audition preparation, which is basically like a masterclass. We just criticize them on we're very, very detailed in our criticism, but what that, at the beginning they were very scared, but what that has resulted in a lot of learning and very good recordings for them that they can then submit for auditions. So that is what we do on Sundays, and we're trying to plan the next semester. Throughout the whole semester, because we were in the red, not in the purple, where people started to have some, schools could start opening up and things, it looked more positive. So we were hoping that we were actually going to rehearse online, do sectionals online, and then get together and make a recording 10 feet apart with masks. My Fresno State Orchestra met once a week. We got special permission to meet once a week. The band room was upgraded, was cleaned. The HVAC system was upgraded with filters. Every student got screened. They had to answer a very detailed questionnaire. They got screened for their temperature. They got a lesson from me about how to wear a mask and how it doesn't move from your face, or else you'll see the other side of Dr. Loewenheim. And there were two little incidents. The student wanted water, and I just, no, you're not moving that mask off your face, And another student just wanted to, no, you don't touch. And it's amazing for me because, again, remember I told you about model of society. I think I was able to educate the student to take this pandemic very seriously, and to show them, to demonstrate that if you're a responsible member of this orchestra, and I told them, if your hair itches weirdly, or if you feel like your toe is itching, just don't come to rehearsal. Any symptom of anything doesn't, I don't, just don't come. And several students, we had a couple of students who were feeling or something, they got noticed that they were exposed to something. They just didn't come for 3 weeks and nothing happened, you know. I mean, really, they just stayed at home. And then when they were tested negative and they were feeling well, they came back. And through the orchestra, we had no infections. No, I mean, like I said, a couple of students did get sick, but they were from family events, not from the orchestra rehearsals. And we were able, through the masks, the distance, and the education, we were able to not spread the infection in our class, which I'm very proud of, because it gave us some, you know, I mean, yesterday I left for the 29th time my home since March 13th. Not that I'm counting, but it's a fact, you know. And I know I'm one of the more extreme people. I wish more people really only left when they had to, rather than just when they felt like it. And I really wish that people took it a bit more serious, because what people don't understand is that my profession doesn't exist right now. And there's 12 million artists in the world who don't. I mean, I have friends in the New York Philharmonic, former student of mine in the New York Philharmonic, who couldn't, they just stopped getting paid and he couldn't afford it and moved back to his parents' place in Indiana. I mean, it's horrible. And all of this is happening because people just say it's my right to do whatever I want, and you can be scared at home, but I have the right to do whatever I want. I don't want to wear a mask, and etc. I don't want to care about my community. But they don't realize that their actions spreading the virus and getting it out is actually affecting us artists. It is affecting many people who are, because I don't get to choose if I go back to my job or not. I have to rely on the CDC, the health organizations. They say, can we go back to concerts? Is it safe? Are the numbers so low? All these numbers means it's a risk factor, right? If the numbers are only like 20, 30,000 like they are now, the chance you get sick is very high. If we have 30, 40 cases, the chance is extremely low, especially if people wear masks. So I'm hoping people will wake up at some point and realize, and of course now we have this vaccines, I hope that will be effective, but I hope that people realize that their actions do affect other people, right? I mean, if you speed on the highway and make an accident, you hit someone innocent who was driving, it's the exact same thing. And I hope that we can come back to performing together, but we're planning right now, hoping that the numbers will go down again. We're planning of rehearsing online and then get the kids together 10 feet apart with masks and screening and making sure nobody is sick, and make a recording and hopefully share it with everyone here. I did post a recording on Facebook of the Fresno State Orchestra last session. We did a recording of 2 of the movements of the pieces we worked on. If you want, I can put it in the chat link or send it to either Mariana or Francine and share it with you. It's a beautiful recording of a movement from Tchaikovsky's Serenade and Borodin's String Quartet No. 2. And in between, we have some student comments about how important that once a week was for them to just, it was for me as well. It was like a bridge of air. You know, I mean, you stay home a week and then you get to go to work. It felt like 1.5 hours of normal per week, you know, and it was really meaningful. And I remember the day of the concert. It wasn't a concert, it was a recording, but I wore a suit. I haven't put on a suit since March. And I was nervous. I was shaking. I was in tears just putting on a suit and going and doing a concert or a recording session. And it was very touching. It was very emotional. So yeah, for us, who are dependent on other people, we're very much waiting to come back, and for us, music is our life. For me, I breathe music and I love sharing it with everyone. So I hope that we come back very, very soon. I'll try and put the link if you're interested in the chat, or send it, whichever way you prefer.
Any do I see any other questions, or can we?
Anyone has a question, I'm more than happy to answer.
Francine, is that you?
Yeah. Yes, it's me. Thomas, when we lived in New Haven, we had the pleasure of hearing Aldo Parasol's Yale cellos play. I don't know whether you've heard them. You probably have.
Of course. Aldo Paraso is one of my big heroes, and I got to study with him every year when he was in Israel, and he used to do the kind of like a cello ensemble with all the students in Israel every year. And
so have you ever thought of doing that here?
We have done it here many times.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
No, so we have one of the things that I didn't get to talk about today, but now you brought it up. We have an international cello festival here every year. And the Cello Fresno is a big international cello festival, and we're doing one small year where we only have about 100 local kids come together and do 2 cello ensembles. We always have a young and a college level cello ensemble, and then we have our big international Cello Fresno where we honor, for example, Lynn Harrell was one of our guests, Uri Vardi was on our guest, Clive Greensmith, Philippe Muller. We had many Tsuyoshi Tsutsumi and Helga Winold were our esteemed guests. This last one was about a year ago. And for that we gather we have I would say between 150 and 200 cellists, because each ensemble almost has that many. And the college level, we have students from Juilliard, we have students from Indiana University, we have students from literally from LA, from all over the country come here for our cello festival, and it's a week long of 4 intense days of cello ensemble. We have 2 gala concerts with orchestra where the faculty play as soloists, and we have master classes. It's cello on steroids every year.
Okay, well, we didn't know about it. We'd love to hear about it in the future. Thank
Well, that's what I mean. It's just impossible to get the word out to everyone. We always think everybody knows, but I'm realizing they don't. So easiest way is just get on the mailing list of the youth orchestra. That's the easiest way of finding out things. And the webpage of the Fresno State Orchestra, a lot of Fresno State Music Department. They have all this information there as well.
Thank you.
Other questions, or, I mean, Thomas, when you speak, it's just so enthusiastic and so interesting, and we just so appreciate learning about a part of life that many of us don't know much about. And I just want to thank you for being with us and for clearly what you're doing for our community.
It's absolutely my pleasure. And thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the speaking and the music.
Oh, we did. And with that, just want to wish you and your family and all of us a happy and healthy new year.
Absolutely.
And, maybe there is a little light at the end of this tunnel. So.
I really hope so. And make sure you wear your mask and keep your distance and stay safe, so we can all meet in the concert hall again very, very soon. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year and happy every holiday that you celebrate.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Have a
Bye.
good day, everybody. Bye-bye.
He is very wordy.